We're talking about the rest of the Civil War today, Chapter 17, Section 1. The main issue in the war was saving the Union and the South not having the right to secede, as we've talked about with Abraham Lincoln's speeches all the way through class so far. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued on January 1st of 1863. It said if any of the 11 rebelling Southern states were not back in the Union by January 1st of 1864, the slaves in those states would be free. And it freed very few slaves because Lincoln had no authority in the Southern states because Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederates. And he did not free any slaves in the border states because they were afraid that they would secede to the Confederate states. Blacks in the military. After the Emancipation Proclamation, blacks began to join the Union Army. Initially, they were only used for manual labor. Eventually, blacks saw live combat, hence the 54th Regiment out of Massachusetts that you read about before spring break. William Carney, African-American soldier, fought for the Union, won the Medal of Honor for fighting bravely in battle at Fort Wagner. A award was given 40 years after the battle, a part of the 54th Regiment out of Massachusetts. 54th Massachusetts Regiment, all-black regiment who led a famous attack in South Carolina, also refused to accept lower pay than white soldiers. The 54th Regiment attacked on Fort Wagner in South Carolina on July 18, 1863. Philip Azar, Chilean immigrant who won the Medal of Honor during the Civil War, fought bravely in battle against Fort Fisher in North Carolina. Latinos were also part of the Civil War. They fought bravely, as you can see. Philip Azar, who we just talked about winning the Medal of Honor. Chapter 17, Section 2. Copperheads, Northern Democrats who favored peace with the South. Conscription, a draft which required men to serve in the military. And bounties, cash payments. Lincoln draws on the conscription twice, or he calls on a draft twice, which means that men had to join the army if they were drafted. An income tax, tax on earnings, greenbacks, Union money that helped to ensure the economy. Clara Barton, nurse for the Union Army, founded the Red Cross. Clara Barton, as it says, founder of the Red Cross. She does a lot of good work as a nurse during the Civil War for the Union. Chapter 17, Section 3. Battle of Gettysburg. Union wins. It's fought in Pennsylvania. Lee could not penetrate Union lines, ordered Pickett to charge, and it failed. Turning point in the war because the South was never able to invade the North again. As we talked about, this is kind of Robert E. Lee's greatest downfall in the fact that he gets a little overconfident and tries to invade the North several times, and this is where the issue lies in the fact that we talked about that all the South had to do was keep the North out of the South. It did not have to beat the North on Northern territory, and this is where Lee kind of extends his military prowess and is beaten because of his overconfidence. Gettysburg was a turning point. Lee realized that the South was in dire straits and decided it was crucial to attack the North on its own territory. Due to the Anaconda Plan, the military was running out of supplies, food, ammunition. The North was cutting off the West from the South, so they could no longer use what they had in Texas or Louisiana. They were trying to squeeze the South, and the North was actually doing very well in the West. July 1st through the 3rd of 1863, Battle of Gettysburg. Confederate bombardment, Union held firm. On July 3rd, General Pickett led 15,000 Confederate troops across open fields. Union mowed them down, and this is known as Pickett's Charge. It is a failure by the South. The North holds off Pickett from his charge. Lee was defeated and retreated to Virginia. Gettysburg is the largest battle in the history of the Western Hemisphere. Over 100,000 people died in 3 days. It was the last time the South invaded the North. It is still not the bloodiest battle in American history. That goes to Battle of Antietam, which we've talked about before. The Gettysburg Address. Here's a little bit of it. We'll talk about it for sure later in class. Battle of Vicksburg, Union victory. Located in Mississippi on the Mississippi River, the Union Army surrounded town and forced Confederacy to surrender. Union Army had split the Confederacy. This is where they controlled everything west of the Mississippi River. The Union did, and they were trying to squeeze the South with that Anaconda Plan. William Sherman was a Union officer. He captured Atlanta, Georgia. He burned most of Georgia by setting everything on fire. This was when Lincoln decided that it was time to go to a total war. And we'll talk about what a total war is, but he marches through Georgia, and everything along the way he burns. Every city, every town, every village, every farm. He burns everything along his way. Top Union general is Ulysses S. Grant. He's the only one who's winning anything for a while in the West. He's doing the only winning for the Union in the West, and Lincoln turns to him eventually as his personal life is not the greatest. He's a drunk, but he has enough balls and enough guts and enough prowess to make a decision on the line to win the battles. Robert E. Lee surrenders to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia on April 9, 1865. The Civil War is over. The Union has won. Over 618,000 military deaths during the Civil War. It's by far the most devastating war in American history due to American loss of life. Chapter 17, Section 4. 13th Amendment is written and it abolishes slavery, and it's ratified or approved in 1865. John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer who assassinated President Lincoln 5 days after the Civil War was over. Booth sneaks into Lincoln's balcony seats as he's watching a play, shoots Lincoln in the back of the head with a small handgun, and then jumps from the balcony seats to the stage. He screams something in Latin that we'll talk about later, and he then runs off and escapes for a little while. Abraham Lincoln dies. It's a fatal shot. They could not save his life. Political and economic developments. Without Southerners and federal government, many changes occurred that benefited the North. The Homestead Act, passed by Congress in 1862, encouraged westward expansion without slavery. 165 acres given to anyone who could farm it for 5 years. Union Pacific Railway, great trade potential, focused on the northern states. Tariffs were put in place to protect northern industry. The effects of the Civil War: creation of a single unified country, the abolition of slavery, increased power to federal government, killed the issue of states' rights, U.S. now an industrial nation, a stronger sense of nationalism, western lands increasingly opened to settlement, South was economically and physically devastated with the plantation system crippled, thus Reconstruction, rebuilding the United States, but a deep hatred of the North remained.